around his apartment complex. A social media group known as the Mafia pushed for these electronic billboards in Central Florida. Mafia.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats. The show is about to begin.
Calling all units A211 at 675 Main. Backup needed.
Car 36 responding.
Suspect wanted for questioning.
Hello, everyone. We've already done our microphone checks and video checks, and everyone is here. Good evening, Eva. Good evening, Sleuthie. Good evening, Peter.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Good Friday evening. There's Sleuthie.
Hello.
Peter, everyone. Sleuthie, your audio is cut out, so you have no audio coming from you. So I'll give you a second to fix that. Oh, now we got
there
you.
she is.
Something had to happen.
So we are here. Peter, thank you for joining. I know you are extremely busy. Peter has a very diverse technical background, I'd say. Why don't you give just a brief summary of what you do, and we'll get into Kylie's case and why you're here. Why is a chief technology officer on a show for Kiely Rodni?
Hi, my name's Pete. I'm basically an infrastructure architect specializing in cellular connectivity for large enterprises. It's probably the easiest, shortest way to state what I do.
Perfect. And I came in contact with Peter back when I was running a data center myself. When you run into roadblocks or technical issues, Peter is the guy that you call. So I appreciate Peter taking our call and being here. So I know that this case has caused a whole lot of social media sort of stir here. Folks are still sort of torn between if this is an accident, which I am still leaning towards, but as you guys will see, there's polls out there where not a whole lot of people think that anymore. It's changed drastically. Law enforcement hasn't put out a manner of death yet. We expect that, according to News Nation, the video clip that we'll see today, we should see that hopefully next week. I'm going to go ahead and show a clip from News Nation to give everyone a background, and we'll dive right into the technical components of this case.
That discovered the body of missing California teen Kiely Rodni now suspects foul play in her disappearance. Rodni was last seen at a high school party at a California campground, but her remains were found nearly 2 weeks later in her submerged car. News Nation's Sloan Glass joins us live now. Sloan, it is important to say police are not yet saying this, but why is the dive team saying foul play?
Exactly, Nicole. And lead diver Doug Bishop is saying that in the case of the California team, he suspects foul play because of what his team saw when they found her car. Kiely's body was discovered by a volunteer group with a popular YouTube channel called Adventures with Purpose. And Kiely was found in the passenger seat.
She's in the back of the vehicle. She's not in the driver's seat. It looks suspicious to me.
Adventures with Purpose specializes in sonar recovery, particularly in finding vehicles underwater. Nevada County Sheriff telling News Nation, "We are not providing comments on Adventures with Purpose remarks. Our investigation is ongoing. We hope to release the final autopsy and toxicology report soon, once they are finalized." They typically focus on cold cases, but after receiving tens of thousands of requests, Adventures with Purpose looked into Kiely's case.
Clearly, their expertise in diving and their equipment that they brought to the table assisted us, and we appreciate that.
And after a 2-week search effort, Kiely's Honda CR-V was found 14 feet underwater in less than an hour by the volunteer group.
Rear driver's side window is halfway down.
Copy that. Rear driver's side window is down.
Kiely Rodni was last seen leaving a high school graduation party with more than 300 people. She had texted her mom saying she would be leaving the party in 45 minutes, adding, "I love you." Diver Doug Bishop telling Ashley Banfield.
And you're hitting on something with someone who knows something there at the party. Someone knows something.
The PIO with the Nevada County Sheriff's Office followed up by telling us they hope to provide an update next week. But with hundreds of people having attended that graduation party, law enforcement is hoping that someone saw something at that party that can help lead to answers and will step forward.
So this that gives sort of folks a background. We're going to play 2 more clips and then we're going to get into it with Peter. The first clip hopefully shows, well, not hopefully, it's really quite sad actually, but it's going to show law enforcement out of Connecticut making a pretty big screw up on a case for a missing person. The name was Ronan, and police actually ended up going out to Virginia based on cell phone pings, even though Ronan had remained in Connecticut. So I'm going to play that clip real quick. We will play another clip after that on cell phones, and then Peter and I will get into a discussion and we can take questions on that. So here we go.
They believe that Ronan is with, also pinged in Virginia. But when investigators there went looking in the area, they did not find anything. Police say they believe that person may be using some type of advanced scrambling technology to throw them off. Meanwhile, the community in Avon, well, they're coming out to support the Hernsdorf family. They plan.
No means exhaustive. Also, many of the technologies aren't freely available, which means the academic literature on them might be based on reverse engineering. One of the oldest phone tracking methods already worked in the pre-smartphone era. Triangulation works with angles and measures the signal strength of different cell towers to a phone. If at least 2 towers are within reach at the same time, the rough location of the phone can be calculated. The more towers are within reach, the more precise the result. And if the target is a modern smartphone, trackers can use a similar, much more precise process called trilateration. This method works by calculating the distances from different cell towers using the time of arrival of the different signals. Conveniently, newer phones might even include their exact GPS coordinates in a response to the cell tower, which makes any calculations unnecessary. Usually, only telecommunication companies have access to the cell tower data, and there is no way to hide from this kind of tracking as long as a phone with a registered SIM card is powered on. Edward Snowden explained it during a 2021 discussion with the Electronic Frontier Foundation. Unfortunately, the audio quality wasn't great.
How does the network know where you're at when you got location services turned off, right? You know, when you have Wi-Fi turned off, when you have Bluetooth turned off, when you have GPS turned off, but you're still connected to the network, right? Well, you're registering to the nearest cell phone tower to you, saying, here I am, here I am. Your phone is constantly screaming out to you, here I am, here I am. Is there a cell phone tower that hears me? And the cell phone tower goes, I hear you. You create a handshake, and then whoever owns that cell phone tower enters you into a register. It can be a home register if that's where you're frequently, the network can be a visitor register if you're like often. But then they share this upstream. The phone globally knows where all phones are at all times. That's how they can signal to each other wherever you are, right? And location services doesn't turn that off because it can't turn that on.
Some network providers even...
Oh, Peter. Peter.
Yeah.
So this, I cut it off there. I mean, this is interesting. You're seeing sort of law enforcement have a huge miss. Even they are not able to interpret sort of how these cell towers work. And you hear from Snowden that it doesn't matter if your chip is off, that this is shared upstream. Do you want to comment on that? And more importantly, in this case, really, you know, there's going to be a slide here that we show. Law enforcement was not very specific about sort of the specifics here. I'm pulling this up now. This was the wrong slide. This is it here. So You see here, the ping for the data points was near the water. It's hard to tell an exact point. Just because it last pinged here, that doesn't mean that's where the phone stopped pinging. There's a lot of reasons why those notifications or data points could be lost. So Peter, you're here to tell us how they could be lost and perhaps educate us on how this all works.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, so you have basic cell service, which Snowden is completely correct on, right? So we have our cell phones. I'm connected to a cellular router right now that's going. If you turn off GPS, you're blocking what your phone sees, but they are right. The tower is still ping. And so if I pull up, like, for example, the router that I'm on right now, if I pull up my AT&T, it's going to tell me what tower I'm talking to, or I can see the T-Mobile, the actual tower ID that I'm talking to. And it does give you basic information of where you're located. And we've been playing around with GPS faking in some scenarios, and I'm actually working with another company on hiding direct location, but we're still struggling with hiding location via cell tower. So you can fake your GPS location, but it's really hard to fake your tower location, if that makes sense.
It does for me. It may not make a whole lot of sense for those not in the technical world. I've been reading about sort of what would happen in an accident, and it makes sense to me. I'm not willing to get into an accident to test this theory, but tell me if this is true. It uses time of arrival for multilateration. So your typical GPS. Yep. Yeah. Go ahead. Step away. Step away. I'm going to continue this clip, and then we'll wait for him to get back. And
use this data for more than providing cell service. For example, for serving location-based ads. To illustrate how revealing this geolocation data can be, German politician Malte Spitz requested 6 months of his own phone data in 2009. An online tool displays the timeline of his life during this period. You can clearly see how cell towers tracked his movements. No wonder that law enforcement agencies often request access to this data to aid with investigations. A comprehensive FBI cellular analysis guide from 2019 that was unclassified in 2021 demonstrates how important for policing geolocation data is nowadays. Well-equipped police forces may use so-called cell site simulators for large events like rallies.
We don't need to get into simulators. It doesn't apply here. Peter should be back. Were you getting mugged, Peter?
Sorry about that.
You get mugged?
Like me in the parking lot.
Back to what I was saying. So when a car is moving, GPS doesn't actually, the satellites don't tell exactly where you are. They're anticipating where you're going to be, right? Because people are traveling at speeds of typically 65, 75 miles an hour. What you're seeing on the GUI, the graphical interface of your Google Maps or Waze, is actually a calculation of where it thinks you're going to be. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's parts AI and parts GPS, right? They're not, your phone is not using that triangular data. So what you see on your app is not what the carriers see. So on your phone, you're using GPS data to pull that up. And then the phone app is basically using predictive analysis to say, where am I going to be? But when the historical information that comes up from, say, a security audit they don't actually know your GPS location. That's stored on your device. They're looking at your tower location. So what you see on your phone is not what Verizon sees all the time.
That's a important note there, because each carrier, Google owns Google Maps, and that data is contained within Google Maps, and Apple would be the same. And so it was perfect timing, because what I'm showing here in a case like this, there is a form. I know this will be hard to see for many viewers, but we have a close-up of it. But this is the form that law enforcement would supply to Apple. We know Kiely Rodni had an Apple device. This is the paperwork that law enforcement would fill out, give to them. And there's two different forms. There's one for regular warrants. This is for emergency instances. So when somebody goes missing and they're expected home, We are presuming that the FBI, once they got involved, would submit this to Apple. This can only come from a government email address. I'm going to show some sort of close-ups of this in a second if I can get to it. So what this is just it's a form for law enforcement. When an emergency occurs, you can see emergency government law enforcement information requests. They have a specific email address, which sort of scares me, Peter, because of spoofing and stuff, but nonetheless, we won't get there. But and you go through the form and you see sort of what law enforcement has to fill out when somebody goes missing or they have an emergency request to Apple. I know there's sort of been a lot of talk about past instances with Apple, particularly in California and terrorism, and they didn't provide it. But generally speaking, from what I've seen in other cases, Apple is, especially with kids, pretty willing to hand over information like this. But to your point, this is one route to Apple, right? That's going to give you some information about their Apple iCloud, but that's going to be fragmented from what the cell carriers see. Is that what you're saying?
Typically, yes. Yeah. The phone's going to have different information than the carrier is important to understand.
Gotcha. And I don't know the answer to this because, I mean, you and I are larger infrastructure. There's been a lot of questions, sort of, I guess it was, this phone was supposedly pinged near the water. People have questioned whether it was a hard shutdown, because that would immediately, like a hard shutdown, meaning, if I press the side of my phone here and shut it down gracefully, I guess we call that in the IT business a graceful shutdown, versus a hard shutdown where it just went into the water and abruptly died. Is that something that if the carriers can tell if that device is recovered? No, there's no phone that we know of yet that's been recovered here. But if there was a phone to be recovered, is that something they're able to tell?
I believe so. As long as it's in a recoverable state to be able to see the logs. Yes.
And there's another particular device that was found, a laptop, an Apple Mac Air, it looks like, from the picture. So Kiely was found, I believe, 2 weeks, and even Sleuthie will get into this once we get through the technology portion. But I guess a laptop was allegedly found. They're saying that the car was retrieved from the water, an item slipped out, and weeks later, a laptop was pulled out. People immediately jump to, this is her laptop. And I've worked on cases with digital forensics, and from a forensic and legal standpoint, that's not her laptop until that laptop boots up. You can show the serial number of purchase, and then, even the serial number on the back of that, you can swap the back of a case on a Mac. So from my purview, legally, that's not her laptop until it's booted up and the serial number matches. Now, I've thought of some complexities. In the meantime, Duty Ron had law enforcement tech guys on, and I didn't think of something else here. If that device, if the Mac had encryption, right? If there's encryption enabled, even if you pulled that hard drive out, even if you got past the water recovery, what is the likelihood of data recovery and actually proving that and booting it up and getting data from it?
I would say slim if it was in standby state at the time of hitting water, because that means it would have electricity going to the board, even at standby. It's easier to recover things that are off and wet than have power going to them in wet, but it's been done. I mean, because SSDs are a little bit more resilient than the old school spinning disks that would rust. So it would require someone really skilled, though.
Yeah, and we saw some amazing data recovery from World Trade Center, right? A lot of
exactly.
Yeah.
There's some pretty incredible data recovery. So, and that's way beyond my skill set to say that. But I do know that if it was off, you would have a better chance of recovery if it's wet.
Gotcha. And I don't think people really that aren't not in technology and haven't been through sort of data recovery, they don't understand the cost. So there's sort of like law enforcement, once they found her body in her car, these sleuths found or said they found her laptop, and law enforcement allegedly said, we don't want it. And people were like, well, why don't they want it? And from my purview, like, we know how much data recovery costs. Now, if you take into effect that they've just spent $700,000 on a search that yielded nothing, and then a nonprofit came in and found her car 30 minutes later, they've spent a lot of money. Data recovery, I had to send out a laptop back out in 2013. This is a Sony Vaio. This is not your network attached storage or NVMe. This is a laptop, a Sony Vaio with pictures on it, and $6,000 to out the data savers for recovery. Something that's soaked in water and that's encrypted, you're talking $15,000 to $20,000. I feel comfortable putting that number out there because I've seen it.
Yeah, and that's assuming they can crack the encryption if it was encrypted, but
That's the big if. I'm familiar with Max, and you make a huge point that I didn't think of, and why I'm appreciative of bringing really smart people up here. If that laptop was in standby, it would have got fried immediately. And most laptops, most Macs do go into standby when you close your lid. That laptop is
the SSD.
Unless you specifically turn that off. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I'm going to bring up Sleuthie and Eva. I really appreciate this portion because I love the tech side. Sleuthie is probably going to bug you with some questions, but I'm going to open up the floor to them before we let you go. And there's a question here too at the bottom that maybe they want to read off.
How far of a radius from ping could the actual phone be? So I would like to know that, but I'd also like to know just because I'll lose it, if it was in standby mode and it went into the water and let's say it fried immediately, that kind of takes away every possibility that was what would have been catching any type of ping or location data, right? So it wouldn't fry and then continue to let us know where it was at, right?
Well, are we talking about laptop or phone now? Because
the
before
laptop.
we talk about so laptop, unless it had a SIM card in it, it's not going to tell you anything anyways.
The theory here, Peter, though, is that Bluetooth, Apple uses Find My, and they detect other Apple Bluetooth. So the hope was that if that Mac and that phone that she had were both on the Find My network, they could continue tracking, similar to Bluetooth using like Boston tunnels when you lose satellite.
Yeah.
But that was what I think Sleuthie's alluding to.
So they're hoping that the laptop was connected to the phone and then using Find My on the cell. Okay.
That was the hope.
The water would fry that if it was on standby at that point. Even if the hard drive's recoverable, as soon as it hit water, because like your phone, they're IP55, right? They're designed to get wet and be moderately protected. Laptops are not. And if you've ever been in college and spill a drink on your laptop, this. Like, you spill the drink and you're kind of
right.
The genius bar and it's saying, please save my data. And so the laptop's not going to is not going to stay online as soon as it's submerged in water, regardless of any state. And then you'd only have to pray that you can get the SSD recovered at that point.
So for instance, if it was completely dead when it went into the water,
you'd have a better chance of recovery.
Okay. So then how far, if we're going back to the pings, how far off would it be? Would it be like 50 yards or 100 yards?
So if we're, once again, correlating the laptop to the phone.
The phone, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So the phone's going to be a little bit better, right? And that's going to be based on the number of towers it's pinging against to be able to define that. You can be off, especially in the woods. And we've seen this even in like cellular routers, right? Where I don't know if you've ever pulled up like Google Maps when you're in a rural area, that little blue dot is like you're in downtown Atlanta. It's super, super tiny. But when you're out in the North Carolina, that blue dot's big. And because it has to guess where you are, that even the GPS signal with trees and blockage are going to restrict that range. And that range could be the entire size of a lake area, depending on the coverage of the area above it. So you have the tower that's giving you data like the police are going to get. And then you have the GPS that Find My Phone's going to get. And the GPS is going to be more accurate than the tower, but can be restricted by trees. And so it's going to make that finding area much bigger. If that makes sense.
It does. And well, only because I live somewhere where, we have the best internet and it's still horrible because I guess because it's in a larger location. But so basically, does that mean that the accuracy of her last ping, being as how it was in the middle of trees, in like a national forest park, unless she was hooked to some type of Wi-Fi, how accurate would her last ping have been?
I would say not great.
Really?
I mean, but that's only based on what I'm hearing right now. So I have not been reading into this story. I was called in just to provide this information, but based on my experience with wooded areas and GPS coverage in general, as well as tower pings, and then the way Find My iPhone works anyways, it's not constantly saying that you'd kill your battery in seconds, right? It's not like you're in Google Maps and you're watching it live. It's sending periodic keep alives. A lot of devices, that's every 45 or 60 seconds, not every second like you would see in like Google Maps. So unless she was running Google Maps, or unless she had Find My iPhone enabled, or like a parent had the Find My Friends enabled where it was actively tracking that data, it's going to be 60 seconds delayed at best.
So from what I understand, that is kind of what, I mean, they've talked about this Life 360 app. I haven't really heard that, so I'm just going to assume that she was tracking her on, like, like you said, My Friends or Find My iPhone. That's how I track my mom. So if that were the case, it would be more accurate if, say, mom was at the house and she was actively tracking her.
So I just want
to,
I just want to reiterate that I brought in Peter agnostic for a reason, right? So he doesn't know about mom. He doesn't know. He is technology only. Yeah, I want to make that clear. He doesn't know anything about this case, and it's important because it allows people to understand the technology without the BS surrounding the case. So there's a question up here. It says, can you turn off location and still use the phone to make a call? Yes. I can answer that. And also, you don't need a SIM to call 911. Any carrier has to take that call. Your phone does not have to be active. So if you're out there, that's good education, good question. Any other questions not related to the case, but related to technology for Peter?
Well, I'm looking at one about the ping could have come from the laptop. So essentially, if we're just strictly talking about the laptop, in order for it to ping, it would have had to at least been powered up. It would have to have a SIM card. There's different variables, but had it been turned on, as soon as it hit the water, it would have completely likely fried it. So we're really not going to get any information from the laptop. Am I understand? It's really not that important.
Yeah. Cell phone laptops don't have, like my laptop, I don't have a SIM card in it. I have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, which is talking to a Wi-Fi router or talking to my phone. And so it's not actively transmitting a signal.
Okay. Yeah, that makes more sense. I guess I hadn't thought about it frying, because they say if your phone goes in the water, it'll still maybe ping or stay on for such and such amount of time.
Up to a certain depth, right? Until the water blocks that signal, it would stay working for quite a while, actually.
I wonder how deep that is, because she was only 14 feet. Well, let's say 17, less than 20 feet. Is that enough to block a signal?
It would be enough to block the signal, but the phone would last for about 30 minutes before it got damaged by water. So the 14 feet would probably block the signal, but the phone would actually stay good for about 30 minutes.
So for instance, if she got a text message, let's just say, within that 30-minute period while she was in the water, while the phone was in the water.
No, I think that'd be too deep to block. I think the water would block the signal based on the density of the water at 14 feet, but the phone wouldn't die for about 30 minutes.
I actually tested this and inadvertently twice and purposely once. So I tried to stream on TikTok to my followers while I was snorkeling, just a foot underwater, and my cell signal can't sustain anything. You're not going to sustain a signal. But you make an interesting point that the phone could have been working and on, still working obviously without a signal, but on and working underneath for quite some time because it was IP55 rated. So
Eva, and I think actually IP68 nowadays, but it's rated for 30 minutes.
Gotcha. Eva, any other questions related to technology, or shall we carry on with the case?
No, I actually answered the questions that I was going to ask. So super informative. Everybody in the chat seeing the same things is awesome. Very, very informative.
Yeah, Peter, this was, I really appreciate you coming on board. Obviously, you're free to hop off after this. We're going to continue on with.
And I do have another meeting. I got to go, but thank you guys so much.
Yeah,
Have a nice
thank you so much
Peter.
for joining us, Peter.
Thank you so much.
He's good at explaining.
He
like,
is. He's a
in layman's terms.
He's a real true nerd, and a really smart one. I think that we have. I told Jess, who's here. She's a local, so I wanna be timely. I want to get going with the content. So I was out. I was actually at a park, and I asked law enforcement. I actually didn't know he was law enforcement until actually we started speaking. I was asking folks out in public if they knew about this case. Obviously, asking people if they knew who is Nancy Grace. But this turned into sort of a special moment as I was doing that and asking if he knew. So,
what do you think of Nancy Grace?
The commentator?
Yeah, the lady from the blonde lady that does like true crime.
Oh, true crime stuff is always cool.
Did you follow the case out of California with that Kiely Rodni, the 16-year-old?
No.
No.
What happened with her?
The law enforcement looked for her for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
With dive teams and FBI, and they cleared the scene at the lake where they had a party. And then Adventures with Purpose came in, the sonar diving, folks,
yeah.
and they found her like within 30 minutes. And so now people are, people don't know what happened. I mean, we presume it's an accident, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
She went to a party.
Yeah. Alcohol, drugs.
Probably weed,
Even for myself as a grown man, if I mix alcohol with weed, I'm loopy. I'm done,
Yeah.
And so that's all it would take for an accident. But
yeah, let's former law enforcement knowledge. With a baby in a backpack.
in Florida?
No.
Okay. Colorado.
Yeah.
That would do it for me. That would do it for me too.
Well, every time when you live in a small town, you drive by the same place, boom, you see it.
That's sad.
So, well, you know the deal. If you're in long-term recovery and you've been dealing with that, you know the deal. You go by a place that you used to hang out, and all of a sudden,
people, places, things. Yeah. Addicts, just people trying to do better. Metanoia, really. So, thank you for what you did too, man. Hey, Ali, nice to meet you. Like the fighter. All right, man.
What's a baby in a backpack?
In Florida?
No.
Okay. Colorado.
Yeah.
We'll be here. All right.
some heavy stuff, and something that we talk about often. Turn down the music, but just heavy stuff. You know, I'm an addict, and I've spoken about this on Twitter, and obviously coming from that world, I've been combative with law enforcement most of my life. But being in sobriety and just having the human experience, the human counterpart that had to find a baby in a backpack, and who's walking around to try to sort of relieve some of that trauma. We are all human. Doesn't matter what field you're in, and that was special for me. So we're going to play one more clip. Jessica is waiting, standing by. Heavy stuff. We need a humor clip, and then we're going to get into discussion, a little more of some humor, and asking folks if they know who.
What do you think of Nancy Grace, though? What do you think of Nancy Grace? You don't even know who she is? The blonde lady from Fox?
Who is?
Hey, kid, what do you think of Nancy Grace? What do you think of Nancy Grace?
What?
Nancy Grace. What do you think of Nancy Grace?
I
don't know.
He will.
I am the nerdy addict, and I take it real slow. Take it real slow. What do you think of Nancy Grace?
Hello? There's this one group. There's one group. Hello? Do you have a stapler?
You followed that case in California, that missing teenager, Kiely Rodni? No. Police searched for her for about 2 weeks, and they were searching this reservoir. Her car was missing too, and they left. And that company, Adventures with Purpose, the sonar diving company, they came out and found her within 30 minutes in the same spot law enforcement was. So, after a party, yeah, it is. I mean, I don't know. Would you say something like that would drive your suspicion? Like if yeah, exactly. I mean, a miss like that's gonna.
Especially if that was your child.
Does anybody work in the register? Loving Hip Hop? Is that a band?
Oh, see, you don't know what that is? Emily Grace? Yes.
Anything to do with Nancy Grace?
Sleuthie, I
That
know
was
you live
great.
for that. I had fun making that one.
I'm living for the Nancy Grace videos.
It's so funny because when we go out, literally no one, like there's not clips that he's leaving out where people say that they know who she is. It's literally nobody knows.
We don't have to. My mom, I've shown my mom some of them, and she's like, I think only like older people know who Nancy Grace is, like my age.
Even the older people, like
I
people you
know.
would think would be her demographic, are like, who's that?
Yeah, I know. It's great. I bet she loves them. Nerdy.
Yeah, I think she's loving them.
Nerdy, where did you go?
Where did he go?
He needs praise for them, and the fact that he sung the Nerdy Addict song for strangers at the park, like
that was great. Yeah.
I was bringing in Jess here. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Jess has joined us. So Jess is the local. I'm just going to change the layout here. Jess, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm okay. The first half an hour always has the most jitters, and I get relaxed when I speak to other tech folks. Sleuthie, you have crickets constantly. You need to hit your M button and go on mute when you're not talking, please.
Sorry.
No worries. Jess, I appreciate you joining. We do have, we know you from the Twitter world, but I do want to introduce you. You came on and sort of said, look, something seems wrong. When we came in contact with you, I actually thought you were a hoax yourself. You had come forward with a photo that looked like this, and there was a lot of chatter on social media on this is not Kylie's. And for me, look, I don't know. There's people in this case that look like Kaylee, and I've mistaken for her. But when Eva pulled up her black jumper and zoomed in and started looking at how this thing was sort of thrown out and where it was, you sort of piqued our interest and started talking. And I sort of reached out and said, "Well, show me the receipt." And you came back and said, "Here it is," and I'm going to try to show that here. This is the geolocation of where that black jumper was found. We saw the service log. You sort of found this and felt that, as best as I can gracefully say it, you felt law enforcement sort of fell short in their response and their communication with you.
Yeah. So when I found it, I was just driving down a dirt road between Prosser and Boca, and it was in the middle of the road. And I had just passed some undercover detectives that were knocking on a camper door, and so I saw it in the road, and of course, my eyes were alert that day because I had just heard about her going missing. And when they first came out, they said, she's wearing a black tank top. And so my eyes were open for that information that they had put out. This is before the surveillance came out. And so I saw it, and I got out of my car, looked at it, took a picture, and drove back to where the detectives were and told them, hey, there's a black item of clothing in the middle of the road down there. And I went down and waited for about 15, 20 minutes for them to come back. They said, okay, we'll go bag it up. And they never came, and I had to go to my job. And so I went to my job, and when I came back about a half hour later, it was gone. And then I never heard anything from them about it. And the only thing they ever mentioned was on one of their press conferences, they said nothing was ever found. Not that, something was found and it wasn't hers. It was just, they said it was fake news. Nothing was ever found. There was no tank top ever found. There was nothing found.
And I guess we knew that, right? When law enforcement missed with the vehicle, we sort of had that feeling that reinforced it. And then I think we're not going to use names, and perhaps with time, there's some serious sort of safety questions at this point with other locals that are speaking to us. I have filtered those through Sleuthie, other members of the team, but generally put out quotes. And then you talk to another person that has been in the area that does search and rescue, supposedly on day 3, allegedly on day 3. Typically this person has, this area has wildfires. There's things that happen out here. So search and rescue is a big deal out there. She sort of was wondering where the call was from law enforcement, and they sort of said, look, we don't need you. This is an investigation. Don't need your search help. All of this combined really, really, I am data and technical bound. But when you start hearing this from valid people, legit people, right? There's no good reason for you to come out here or Twitter and say something's wrong. There's no value to you. In fact, it's probably harder for you. It makes me really wonder what's going on here. And I think some national news have picked up on this. Fox News Nation started using, the AWP sort of narrative that they also, they suspect foul play, and now news media are running with that narrative. It makes it hard because when you hear the data points, like that makes it hard for me. But I'm going to let you guys speak. I'm going to let you facilitate this part of the conversation, Eva, Sleuthie, Jess, and I will jump in if I have questions. But Jess, I appreciate your courage and bravery for speaking out and saying something, taking the time to answer my questions to make sure the geolocation was mathin'. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you. And yeah, I've been talking with the lady. She actually lives close by Boca, and she was part of a search team as well. And they found information that law enforcement never came and picked up. So, I mean, it's not just a matter of if this stuff is relevant to the case or not. It's just that they're not following up on any of the leads at all, including what I found, whether what I found was valid or not. And what she found was pretty important information, and they just never followed up on it.
Well, and I'm like biting my tongue. So you don't know if it's important or valid or it's needed until you go get it and you look at it and you determine that it's not valid or needed. So the fact that
That's exactly what I was thinking.
If she's missing, they thought she was abducted at that point. So you would think that here's a black, it looks like a bodysuit in the road. You would think they would run to collect some type of piece of her because all they had was a ping.
Yeah, and for me, I was like, oh my gosh, there's this black piece of clothing in the road right where she was.
Mm-hmm.
That seems really important. And I was, kind of, took my breath away because they're just say, look for black tank top, look for black tank top. And it's right there. And they're just not even acknowledging anything that's being found.
I mean, it's almost like they didn't expect a black bodysuit to be found. You know what I mean? And they did call it fake news. And they had community meetings where they were saying, don't listen to anything you see on social media. We'll let you know about it. Like, I would love to know what all was actually said in these community meetings, because your story is not the first that I heard. The only, there were 2 broadcasted community meetings, and in both of them, there were locals that were saying that they found certain things or had different ideas, and they really got shut down.
They did. And people that have information about, there's 2 other sightings of Kaylee that happened that Saturday, and those people have been completely shut down and silenced.
Yeah, I saw a clip of one of the community meetings that you're talking about, Sleuthie, and it seemed like they were being shut down firm. It was almost in my opinion, arrogance on law enforcement side. It almost seemed like they took offense to, tips and suggestions. People were suggesting they weren't doing their job, but people were trying to, Jessica had pertinent information. I think the same thing. They don't know if it's valid information or not if they don't go check it out and rule it out. So
that was what it was. It sounded like how dare you, the whole if you've thought about it, we've thought about it comment. It bothered me. And I heard people reprimanded in these community meetings for suggesting anything, and because it made them sound incompetent.
I want to actually take a second and just, Kylie's mom put out a statement. I want to go ahead and watch that, and then we'll continue the conversation.
To each other in her memory. Kylie's dear friend recently told her mom that before all of this happened, she thought the word community had no real meaning, that it didn't really exist. But after Kiely went missing, the way our community showed up in full force showed her that it in fact is so very real and so, so powerful. That kind of impact on our teens gives me hope, the demonstration of strength and togetherness, and the way that they have an army of supporters standing behind them will carry them far as they enter adulthood. We would like to thank everyone who has come together to support us in what we hope will be the most difficult time of our lives. There's no way that we'll be able to ever return the kindness, generosity, and compassion that has been extended to us over the last month, but we will live the rest of our lives trying, and in that trying, Kiely will be with us, reminding us to be kind, laugh, and sing, and that sometimes it's even okay to cry. In closing, I want to thank our media friends for respecting our request to give us privacy while we celebrate my daughter today. Unfortunately, the social media frenzy has become such a monster that our teens are suffering, and we want to create a safe space for them to heal together without fear of something being taken out of context. To anyone who gains pleasure or satisfaction from commenting online, I ask you to take a moment to look inward and to try to recognize your motive. Remember the three gates that all words should flow through. Is it kind? Is it true? Is it helpful? I implore you to remember that there is honor in silence and there is kindness in minding your own business. You are talking about the death of my child, our community's child.
So it's sort of, I obviously, I feel her pain. It saddens me to watch, but it's also conflicting because at one point you're saying, stay out of our business. This is it's sort of conflicting, the community statement. And she makes a statement about, honor and silence. And that didn't, I'm not here to antagonize or hurt families. I am here to analyze the case and data. And it just combined with all the other things, the very least I can say it's all very odd.
I'll say that
I think so too.
Yeah, weird was it was a really weird mixed feelings. But there's a family member that is active in the Facebook group, and she or he posts as anonymous group participant, who kind of gave us some insight into this kind of statement because apparently they weren't very happy with it either, and her feeling on it was that it's like a protection thing. She's only hearing the bad things. She's only hearing about the outrageous things that are being said. They're not actively monitoring social media. Like they shouldn't be. But people are taking back things that are being said, and it's going back to the family. And it's usually only the awful things, which I don't have a hard time believing that. So her whole thing was in her, the vibe that she got from it was that mom was just trying to protect the kids because she's not able to protect Kiely. So it's like through them, she's protecting Kiely. Does that make any sense? Not wanting them to be,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not asking if she should or shouldn't, but in general, maybe it would make a little bit of sense. Death is crazy. It's people deal with it.
I think one of the Jeff's for me, Sleuthie, when you're just the M button when you're not talking. Somebody has feedback. Somebody's not muted. Thank you. Just the sort of thing for me, bringing Peter up here and talking about the technical components of the case, there's things that still bother me. The notion of foul play, nobody's really defined what that is. I think that can be broad. But the notion that people brought, the cell phone in the car to that spot, I immediately sort of cringe because law enforcement would see that in the logs. The problem with that rational thinking is you, the locals and folks coming out and saying law enforcement isn't doing what we expect them to do. And so I've said that, like, that's what should have happened in the background, right? Law enforcement should check to see if any other pings were within even 100 yards of her cell phone ping when her stopped. But it doesn't sound like a lot of things that typically happen in this process are happening, and that's what you're seeing on the ground, and that's what you are also hearing from locals there as well. Is it one local? Is it two? Is it three? How many people locally feel something's wrong?
So, in talking with, like I said, the one lady that lives pretty close there, you kind of have a divide with the people that are kind of spinning the narrative, which had kids at the party or kids of high school age, and then you have the rest of the Truckee community. And most people that were involved in the search and found information, they're all under the assumption that everything that happened at Boca, and then her car was later taken to Prosser. And they all feel a certain way, and they feel like something weird is going on. And you only have a small group of people that are saying, mostly it was an accident. So the rest of the community, feels a certain way.
And there's a lot that feel out there. I don't know if you can see this on the screen, but I will read it. I put out a poll, and I'm sure there's more votes because I took this 3 hours ago. But 73% of people feel that this is foul play. I'll note that almost 18% hated here. And that's how I voted as well. Because I just, initially, I think people heard me loud and clear that I thought this was an accident typically. And you heard from, even that clip with the law enforcement guy that I was talking to, his first question was very law enforcement, like, right, was there alcohol? Was there drugs? Because that's the first thing you think of when someone goes missing near water at a party. But you can see here that the people want answers. People think this is foul play. People put a lot of pressure here on law enforcement to get answers, including yourself.
I think in the beginning, I thought it was an accident. And because I work up there every day, I was doing more searching than I was working. I was going off on dirt roads and all these different places that she could have went off the road. I was stopping, looking over cliffs, going down in creeks. I thought she must have driven off the road. Just haven't seen her yet because it is very forestry up there. So I really did think that in the beginning. But as more information came out, it's either that the law enforcement is completely incompetent and they can't be that incompetent, or there's foul play. There's just, in my mind, there's just no other way to look at it. There's too much.
Well, can I ask this? Do you know if they picked up this black piece of clothing? Like, even now, a month later, do you know if they picked it up or if someone else picked it up?
Yeah, so I didn't think much of it until I saw that press conference where they said, that's fake news, and they were really rude about it. That didn't happen. And then it crossed my mind that maybe they didn't pick it up. Maybe someone else picked it up. Maybe they picked it up and never turned it in. I don't know. But now I'm wondering.
I'll tell you, for someone that gets a lot of data and has to filter through it, it's the first time on a case where someone is truly concerned about safety. They're, really reluctant to speak, to the point where we're trying to work with them and blur faces and disguise voices, and that's a first for me on any case. And there's a comment up here. Thank you, Logan's mom. Thanks to all of you. I was just saying that to let you know that I understand grief. I've buried a 16-year-old son. I know many who have buried children. Mom's behavior is unlike anything I've seen. And I tend to agree with you. And I'm sorry, Logan's mom, for your loss. No parent should have to do that. And that's why I'm trying to be careful about what we say, and how we say it. But it's not lateral to getting the truth here. So
There's, there's several people that I've spoken with that are scared to come forward, literally scared for their life.
I've had people contact me that work with search and rescue out of a different county that wanted to come in. In general, people are willing to speak. They want to speak, and they want to speak for Kiely, but they don't want their names written or shared. And I just kind of have to wonder why, when an accident is what's being, what is there to be afraid of if it was just an accident? But everybody I've spoken to, they don't want their face shown, and they don't want their names anywhere.
And those are huge red flags. Like that tells you something, and all of us, that people they don't trust the work that law enforcement is doing, and they also are too afraid to speak up about it. Like, to me, that's very bizarre.
The lady who saw Kiely on that Saturday, the same day as the tow truck driver, she completely got spooked. She won't talk to anybody now.
And I think it's important for me to note when getting information like this that, you guys aren't coming out and posting on YouTube or, other platforms to get followers, to get likes. You guys have consistently reached out behind the scenes saying something's wrong. And only when, sort of you came up on Spaces, I'm grateful for that to speak. But it's much different than other components of this case and other cases. You kind of know when people are being authentic. And so I do want to say that, Jess, I do have from day one believe that what you found was concerning enough for you to call law enforcement, to make sort of just basic etiquette from law enforcement there to confirm that, hey, yes, like they have your number, like call back, hey, we picked this up, or to leave a citizen that was out there on their own dime and time, searching and trying to help, to be dismissed like that. No matter what you believe, that's just wrong.
And we're not talking about children, right? We're talking about grown adults who are afraid to have their names out there. And I don't think that it's because, well, so-and-so spoke and look what happened to them kind of thing. There's grown-ups that are scared to speak. And I don't know how much it has to do with it. And I plan to look into it and find out if it does have a lot to do with it. But it was explained to me that this is a town where there are people who are affluent, very affluent. There is a lot of wealth around there. Someone asked me, what would make someone, how could someone, first of all, what would make someone do something awful? And second of all, what would be worth it to cover it up, right? And the answer is money, a lot of money. And that's how you also...
The amount of money in Truckee, I think, is maybe a lot of people don't even understand. So I'm an appraiser. So I go into $10, $15 million homes up there that are second, third, fourth homes for people, high profile people. And there's a lot of money up there outside of just the locals that, live, low end. But the amount of money up there is insane.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And for nothing. And it's interesting because the reason that got brought up was, in comparison to and I'm looking at their lodge, and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this huge, beautiful cabin in the woods, and people are going there and paying money to stay there. That's how beautiful it is. And even when they have to hike to it, and they were like, but in all reality, in terms of levels, in that town, there are way more affluent, powerful individuals, families, things like that. So potentially, if I'm thinking who could shut up an entire group of people, grown-ups and children, not children, but, you know, teenagers, young adults, it would be someone or several someones who are very powerful and have a lot of money, right? I mean, it's common sense.
It's every single component of this case is why it's gone viral. One of the things I've been following is AWP's Adventure with Purpose's stats, and someone just showed me tonight they had bought a window breaker, so I just wanted to show a short clip here. This is an old clip about cars going in water, which happens often, and again, this is why many people still think it's an accident.
Floods, more of them ahead this spring. An estimated 400 people die each year because their cars are trapped in water. And it turns out many of us are doing exactly the wrong thing in that moment. We roll up the windows and hope for an air bubble or call 911. But tonight, ABC's Lisa Stark is going to show you a demonstration of the right thing to do if your car is sinking and the 30 seconds that can save your life.
What you're about to hear are actual 911 calls from people in sinking cars.
Help me! I got fire department going. I don't know what to do. The car is sinking. It's to my right. It's up to my right. It's going down fast. I can't get out of the car.
Here's the headline you must remember. You have to get out of the car before it sinks. That means you likely have under a minute to get out. Speed is the key to saving your life.
The first 30 to 60 seconds is when you have to get out of that vehicle.
That's leading researcher Gordon Giesbrecht, who says it's too late to try to push a door open when the car's underwater. So this Florida dive team shows what can be done.
Okay, guys, ready to go.
Let's start the clock in real time. A second after hitting the water, seatbelts off, then windows down. Within 8 seconds, both front seat passengers are out. Water now rushing in the back seat. Passengers scramble. In some cars like this one, rear windows won't roll down all the way. The escape is out the front. Everyone is safe, all in under 20 seconds.
Everybody's clear.
Here again, in slow motion, Jeff, who was in the back seat.
It was very intimidating. The car.
Jeff was kind of cheating there. I mean, he was already like halfway up when the car was going in the water. But you see, I mean, you have about 30 seconds to a minute. Those guys were obviously ready to jump out of that car. You can imagine how difficult that would be if intoxicated, if you were not expecting that, if there's water rushing that, which is why, there's still a percentage out there that believe this could be an accident.
Thank you for that clip. It gave me anxiety.
Yeah, I was sitting here like, and I thought about that too. Like, these people are already, they know what they're supposed to do. Number one, and number two, they're like prepared. They can like mentally prepare, physically prepare for being in the water, right? So
this was more about me. I was trying to see if I could fit the entire show from 9:45 to 10:45, and if you look at the time, you'll see that's what I was trying to do. All my content is done, so really it was just a fill-in spacer content for safety.
So now we can just talk, but seriously though, the video, and it's interesting because she wouldn't have even had that much time. So 30 to 60 seconds, we're basing off of conditions where the car's going to float for a little while, right? Not where water's going to rush in because
it's going to depend on how fast she was going, and that's why we keep going back to that cell phone data, because hopefully that will piece together the puzzle for law enforcement, right? If she was going 40 miles per hour, that's going to change versus rolling in.
Well, I'll tell you what makes me nervous. Like, I'm now wondering if that is where her ping was. Was she even there at 12:33? Let's say, could she have been in Boca? Like, how far would it? You know what I mean?
When does Adventures with Purpose plan on releasing the next segment, sort of to give us some clues here?
I don't think they said, like, if you don't do something in 2 weeks, then we're going to release it, like a hostage. But I think that I mean, they said straight up that they're not going to release it because if they did, it would heavily mess with the investigation, which again, I mean, if it's an accident, what could possibly be on that footage that's going to mess with the investigation, you know?
That they're taking it serious enough that they feel like it would impede an investigation. So, and you know, they seem like they know what they're doing as far as something like that, if it's going to impede an investigation. So if they feel that strongly about it, then it's got to be something.
And Jessica, you heard the same thing that this local conveyed to us, that you now have multiple eyewitnesses that say they saw Kiely on Saturday. Is that accurate?
Yeah, there's 3. If you include the tow truck driver, there's 3 eyewitnesses that saw Kiely. One interacted with her, talked to her on Saturday.
This is wild. I mean, Eva told me middle of this week that, you know, she reminded me that AWP said that perhaps this is far deeper than what any of us considered. I don't know. I keep going back to motive. And really, we've talked about that on Twitter, and like, there's no liability for the kids drinking and doing drugs here. Liability we have seen while this case was going on. Nate C., 20 or 21 years old, arrested for providing fentanyl to a 15-year-old girl back in, was it June or July? You know, so the liability here would be on a plug. The person that provided these drugs. Now, it's Sleuthie, I don't know, is this absolutely confirmed that Kiely's car was sort of a hot spot for alcohol? Do we know if it was also used, like, were drugs being handed out from there?
So consider the source. So the only source that we have says that, and it almost felt like a slip, which sort of made me believe that she was telling the truth, was we would go back to her car and that's where we would go get more drinks. So I don't know that the whole party was getting drinks from there, but it adds a level of unease for me in terms of, you knew that's where Kiely was getting her drinks from, and so did whatever number of people were also going to her car to get those drinks. And were they secure? Did she lock her car in between going back and forth from the party? Probably not, you know. But I'm still not even I don't know.
I completely cut you out by showing a video. Your audio cut out for the past 30 seconds. I know.
I said.
I just want to go ahead.
I don't know that she was even drinking. So for me to like confidently say, yeah, she was like the hub where everybody was going to get their alcohol, including her, like I couldn't say.
I think one of the biggest questions too that I have is, with everything that's been found underwater, is where is her phone? If it was just an accident, you would think that her phone would be right there with all the other stuff, and it's not.
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. Where's the phone? That's that's really a big missing puzzle piece.
Why wouldn't they say? Like
the phone, the picture that was shared from someone on Twitter, I guess came from Check It TV today. The photo that was shared shows a phone charging cable, but still I don't see a phone.
Well, I mean, have you ever been fishing or near a pond of any kind of car? I mean, it kind of came late. I don't know.
Yeah, my problem
Everybody
on
has
this
the
equipment.
same cord.
Yeah, and that's been again why I brought the guy, the chief technology officer, up here today, because I'm not, yeah, it looks on the surface like these are Kiely's belongings, right? This is her laptop. Now, we can't say for certainty that it is, because that laptop probably won't ever be able to be booted up. I don't know. Was it in the water, and was it found by that guy? Yes. Was it actually the laptop that was in her car? I don't know. Was that placed in the water in between the time the car was either left in there or found? I don't know. And those are really important questions for me, at least. And and why I've been so sort of like hung up on that's not her laptop until we boot it up and match the serial number. Like there's a process for this forensically, and it's problematic that for that I don't understand why after all these misses, law enforcement couldn't take the 4 hours, put on their scuba gear, and go down there and sweep. It's really fucking bizarre.
But there are pictures of their divers in the water when they were recovering her
Right.
car.
They
So
were in
they
there
were in
already.
there.
Yeah, I agree. Again, this is all, it all just feels very like you have to know what you're supposed to do in order to do the exact opposite every single time. I'm not buying that they just like aren't educated, you know?
No, I agree. They can't be that incompetent. That's just a level of incompetency. That's just no way.
And they shouldn't be like driving around trying to like uphold any type of laws if they are that incompetent. But an entire department is not going to be. And honestly, the people that I've spoken with are from the other search and rescue, like actual search and rescue, like units that do this. That she's telling me stories about finding people in avalanches. And I said from the beginning, I'm like, they should know how to do this. AWP should not come in. That is their terrain, right? That's where they live. So they should be skilled in searching in that type of terrain. They should be skilled in locating people. Like Sammy, I mean, if in school at a very young age, they're teaching them to use their phone as a reflector so that helicopters and search and rescue can find them, I find it very hard to believe that like the people, and she said, she's like, you know, even just the regular locals, community members, they're all skilled in searching. But she's part of an actual search and rescue organization. And what's getting to me is multiple reports from different people that the actual search and rescue crews were told that they weren't needed. That's bothering me as well.
You have to think of Tahoe is right there, Lake Tahoe, one of the deepest lakes ever. They have to be skilled in knowing how to search underwater. I mean, Boca, Prosser, all those aside, Tahoe and the amount of people that go to Tahoe and get stuck in the water and, you know, all the problems they have have to have, you know, the wherewithal to know how to search in water more than any other place.
I agree with you. It doesn't make sense to me.
Now, Eva, you were actually the one that identified when you took your own black jumper. I have the photo up here of what Jess found. There's arguments on was this even the one she was wearing. Do you want to sort of fill folks in on sort of how you came to your conclusion on why this could be hers?
Yes. So I actually, when I first saw this photo, the very first time we all saw it, I was like, no, that's definitely black tank top. I'm looking up, you know, where to the upper left of it. Then I believe, Jess, that you were speaking with, and she was saying, no, that's not a strap. That's like the crotch of the bodysuit. So it would be, and then once I looked at it, I'm thinking, okay, it is, because a lot of those bodysuits are snap bottom. We all, we love those. Those are great. And I have some of those. So I did. I went and pulled it out of my drawer, and I'm looking, and I tried to, manipulate it, make it look how it was laying in the picture, and it just fit. Like it hit me instantly. Like, oh my gosh, that's not the strap. That's actually the bottom part of the bodysuit, and you can't unsee it. Like once you see it, you can't unsee it. When you're looking at another bodysuit that has the same thing.
And I don't wear bodysuits, but I asked my daughter-in-law, and she did the same thing you did, and she kind of put it on the floor the same way, because when they came out and said she had a bodysuit on, which was a couple days after I found that, I was like, oh, well, then that wasn't hers, because I think that was a tank top. But then people started saying that looks like a bodysuit because there's more material than would be in a tank top. And she manipulated hers the same way and said, those could be snaps. And I asked my other daughter, same thing. That could be, the crotch area of the bodysuit. I don't know.
I think it is. I mean, to me, and if you look at the picture of her in that surveillance, for as high up on her hip as it looks like a thong.
High
There would
cut.
be a lot of absolutely.
Right, yeah, like a thong high cut. And this picture right here, why'd you take my picture away? So this one right here, it looks like the one in the picture of the one that you found, Jess. Like towards the front would be, thicker material, and then that little arrow in the back, that's going to be the thong area. So when you go and you look at this one that you found now, that seems similar to me. So that front area is a little wider. That back strap looks like a thong. So to me, that's definitely a black bodysuit.
Yeah, and really where I found it, and that we were looking for that item of clothing, and it was, it was maybe ran over once, but it was new. It hadn't been laying there for a long time and tattered or anything. And I actually was able to enlarge that tag, because the tag's in a weird spot too for a tank top. And I was able to find that maker makes bodysuits. So, but they could make tank tops for all I know, but they do make bodysuits too.
It's important to note that this location, I'm putting it up on the screen when you put it into Google Earth. Eva, I think you said this would have been a route from one of the lakes to Prosser. Is that right?
Yeah, so we looked, once we got this data right here from Jess, we looked on the map, and between Prosser and Boca, where this is at, where it says Prosser Dam Road, it's actually on the other side of the reservoir, so like the northeast side of it. And it's along a route that would take you, looks to me like the most logical way to drive if you were going from Prosser to Boca. So it was along the way, for sure.
Yeah, so if you're going from Prosser to Boca, you're not going to come out and hit the main roads or the freeway or anything. And I've driven that road many times. And it, right there where I found the tank top, just 100 yards down, you're going to make a right on Boca Road. And it's a dirt road, but it's not like a bad road or anything. Takes you right up to Boca.
So Jess, like from your purview, what are the next steps? What are you guys doing locally? What do you need from the community? Obviously, we're talking about discussion, but we don't just do that, right? There's other things that we can do. Is there pressure needed? Is it just time? Is it patience? What's needed?
I think pressure, honestly. I think that a lot of people have the feeling that they're going to come out and say it was an accident. And there's not a whole lot we can do to disprove that. But I think if we put pressure on higher ups, I think higher FBI, then, I think something will come of it. The hard part is that if the mom's not pushing for it, then that makes it difficult, where everybody else, the community and everybody else, is pushing for answers. But the mom herself is not really looking for answers. The dad and the grandpa appear to be looking for answers, but not the mom. So I think, we need to put pressure on someone high up in FBI, so you can get out of this whole, local law enforcement and all that kind of stuff going on.
What if law enforcement were to come out and say this is an accident, and it's an accident because of X, Y, Z, right? And they show data points, cell phone data, speed. Would that change your reaction?
Possibly. It depends on what they're going to say, but I know they're not going to tell us any of that information. They're just going to come out and say, hey, we deemed it an accident. That's it. Go on with your life. They're not going to give us all the information we're looking for, just based on their history so far.
Yeah. So, at this point, we are trying everything we can do, which is including getting you up here and speaking, both here and on Twitter, and that's appreciated. We will continue.
And I know that one of the locals that I've been speaking with too is, she's trying to get some information that she has, which is a lot of information and pictures and stuff, into, upper FBI. And she's talking with people, just so, because she doesn't trust anybody locally. She doesn't want to bring this information to anybody. So she's got to find a way to get it up higher so that it's not covered up.
Yeah, this is one of those cases where every single point I've leaned on people that I know and experience from previous cases, and I reached out to ex-law enforcement on this one when AWP said clearly, look, there's a diver next to the car and he's FBI, and there's another diver behind him. And when I reached out and said, look, I think there's someone claiming there's a laptop and other belongings found, they said no way. If that was FBI, there's no fucking way. But here we are. And I guess it goes without saying, look, we don't have any official statement from law enforcement saying these are her belongings, do we, at this point? Has there been anything official from law enforcement on
No, no.
that? Yeah, and
No,
it's
the
one
only
of the,
thing
I
I've
mean,
seen is SF
Correct.
Investigates came on and said that there was a laptop found, but that's it.
Yeah, we'll have it. Yeah, PI we'll have his roast on Monday. I don't want to get too much, and that's why we're here with people that know data, people that know cell towers. You heard it from an expert that there's a very slim chance that laptop would be recovered to add to budget. 15 to 20,000 for laptop recovery. I don't know. I don't think that they'll ever be able to confirm it, but we'll see. We'll wait and see. I don't know, and that's part of this case has caused so much sort of people inserting themselves, people claim. And look, if someone found something, that's great. Then the questions arise on, okay, if you find something, you don't go on and stream it. You kick and scream until law enforcement shows up. I think we've seen that with the Doulos case in the carpet. That can be coordinated. But on the same token, you're saying that law enforcement missed a black jumper and didn't want to take it. So it's thus here we are, and why this case is, most people are not letting this case go. I've worked with this community for almost a year, and typically when remains are found, we move on. We're not true crime. We help missing kids and exploited children, and this is one that people that have easily let go of cases before, or at least there's some time in between where there's mourning and grief and all the things you'd expect from people, get entangled with someone, right? When you're looking for someone, when a mom is screaming and law enforcement screaming, help me find my missing daughter, you by default include a community that ends up caring and loving that person. And when it's all of a sudden brought to you that law enforcement didn't do their job, and someone came out and within 45 minutes found what law enforcement couldn't, I don't know. Yeah, not a good look.
So I think that in terms of what they didn't do for this, I think that although it's maybe not right, any logical head of the department, like so for doctors, they have like malpractice attorneys. I'm sure there's some type of oversight of the department in terms of how do we not get in trouble for such and such a thing. I think it's like if you get into a car accident and you say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that I hit you," or "It's all my fault." You open yourself up to lawsuits, right? So essentially, if they have a press conference and they discuss how they said that they were doing their debrief with AWP, if they make that public, things that they didn't do correctly, they're opening themselves up for the family potentially to sue them, right? So I don't think we'll ever hear any type of verbal public accountability. However, it's my understanding that the Attorney General is who will get that accountability. It's their oversight. So they need to be it needs to be reported to them.
And retired New York City officer Diddy Ron agrees. I think he said we'll never hear from law enforcement about their missteps because of liability issues. They know there's going to be a lawsuit. We saw that with Moab, right? Everyone sort of retreats when something needs to be fixed because they know that there are monetary consequences for that. So I do want to be timely. I know Eva had some other pieces that we wanted to wrap up. Want to open up the floor. The mods can put out the link if anyone wants to join and ask questions via video or audio. Feel free to come on up, ask questions, or questions can be presented up on the screen. Eva, Crystal Channel Anderson, South Carolina, North Carolina?
This is South Carolina. So yeah, Crystal, I believe it's Chanel Anderson, missing since August 20th. This is the mother of four. She was fighting in the front yard with her ex-boyfriend. The kids saw her being put into the trunk of the car. She never came back inside. I actually had the pleasure of speaking with Miss Cleveland, the investigator, her private investigator on this case, and she's absolutely awesome. She gave me some of the details on this because there was really no details out there. I think they are now, but so there is a violent history between her and the ex-boyfriend. His name is Tony Berry. She had been beaten several times, so black and blue by him, that she would have to go to family members' houses and recover for days at a time. So this was an ongoing issue between the two of them. After he allegedly stuck her in the trunk of the car, this is what the children are saying they saw, was him put her in the trunk of the car. He disappeared briefly, and then law enforcement found his car in another county, burnt to a crisp, completely burnt. He claims, once he finally spoke to law enforcement, he claims that his car was stolen, but he never reported it stolen, because, we know everybody does that. It was white Cadillac CTS. As of right now, they let him walk. They said he is not named as a suspect. Investigator Cleveland let me know that she feels that the sheriff's office is not taking this serious, not really putting a lot of time and resources into this. She is. And there's no leads on the case as of right now.
So I spoke to her as well, the private investigator, and she believes pressure would behoove this case. So we will get a message out for Monday. Nerdburn Mafia, obviously, shout out to you guys for being here and supporting us. We're likely going to need some phone calls made for Crystal. And there's another missing boy, 4 years old, out of Washington. This is a bizarre one for me. He's been missing since last Saturday evening. Lucian, I'm going to butcher this last name. I don't know if anyone wants to help me with this. 4 years old. And this is a weird one. Law enforcement didn't issue an Amber Alert, and they sort of really wrapped up the search quickly. It looked like on social media there was sort of misinformation between family and law enforcement, community members trying to search. So I wanted to get his face out there. He's still missing as far as I know when this stream started. Put his face out there. If anyone has seen Lucian, please call 911. I want to say thank you to everyone that joined tonight to make this what it is. I see almost 500 people in here at one point. Jess, I want to thank you specifically because you have consistently come up and spoken and said, look, something is a little off here, and you continue doing so. And without that voice, without the voice of other local community members, perhaps this could be shoved under the rug if there is corruption occurring. So thank you very much, Jess. Thank you, Sleuthie. Thank you, Eva. And I'll let you guys wrap up and say some final words. Thank you to everyone that's watching. Don't hit the like button. Don't smash. But seriously, thank you for joining and thank you for tuning in. We will try. These are getting a lot easier, I think. Maybe the panel members can chime in, but the second one, this got a lot easier. A lot more. Hopefully, some more people can join and ask questions. Obviously, the floor is still open here, but this is about having conversations, trying not to come up with, speculation is fine on the case, but do it gracefully, respectfully, with data to back it before things are said. Jessica has the data. She has the geodata. She has the receipts. She has the pictures. That's the stuff that we're looking for. So, Jess, I'll let you go ahead and say some words and thank you.
Yeah, and thank you. I mean, I think that this case needs to be brought to everybody's attention. I mean, something's not right, and I think most people, just judging by your poll, agree with that. And again, a lot of the locals in the community think that way. People that didn't have kids there or anything like that. I mean, most people want to know what happened. It's not just the kid drove into the lake, she was drunk. It's clear. I mean, we want answers, and the only way to get answers sometimes is through social media and getting the attention and calling these people out on what they're doing.
Definitely. And I think everybody, I'm not sure if you can see the chat, everybody agrees. They think you're absolutely amazing for stepping up, speaking out. Thank you so much for not just speaking out, thanks for being here and speaking out about it. I actually wanted to say thank you to everybody. This one, yeah, definitely was easier than the first one. I think it went a lot smoother tonight. Thank you to everybody who stopped in here. Sleuthie actually sent private chat, let me know that there were quite a few really big, awesome names in here. I think everybody's favorite, Duty Ron. We all love him, Duty Ron. Thank you for stopping by. It was actually, we wanted him here tonight, and it was date night with his wifey. So thanks for stopping by after date night, Duty Ron. Yeah, I think it went really well. Sleuthie, can we all just huge round of applause for Sleuthie, because I don't think anybody has
absolutely
tackled this case harder than Sleuthie has. Literally woke up out of his sleep the other morning, and we're sitting here looking at the phones, and Sleuthie's wakey, I want to do his faces. So yeah, everybody, we all know Sleuthie's a rock star.
I can't even turn my camera back on because Nerdy will make fun of me for forever. My cheeks are on fire. But
no,
I'm glad I could be here with Eva because I felt so bad watching the other one. I literally took a bunch of Benadryl and then was like, oh no, 2 hours? Am I going to be able to stay up for 2 hours to do this live? And then I was like, I'm going to be all wonky, one eye half shut. But I appreciate everybody for coming. Jessica, it's courageous in the sense that, these people are scared of what I don't know, but the ones that are coming forward like yourself and actually speaking is really appreciated, and not just by us, but by Kaylee. And that's really why we're here, is for Kaylee. So,
I have 3 daughters and a daughter-in-law, and when she went missing, being so close to it, all I could think was that if that was my daughter, I would want everybody out there helping. And, that's why. I mean, it could happen to anybody's daughter.
yeah, and it's a good quality to have, because it's not as common as you would think. Not everyone, it's always different when it's happening to somebody else. And I just feel like this group of people who are so insistent on being Kylie's voice need to understand that is not an everyday quality of a human, really. I mean, to care that much for someone that you've never met before, and to speak up, put yourself out there in order to do so, it's commendable.
Absolutely commendable. Thank you, everyone, for joining. We will try to do these a little more often. Obviously, they still take a lot of work. There's a lot of content that goes behind these. Thank everyone for joining. Jess, Sleuthie, Eva, everyone have a fantastic night. Thank you, guys.
Wait, can we get that clip? Can we close it out with that clip? My favorite one.
Which one?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, where is it?
It's going to be under graphics.
Okay.
Okay, you mean to tell me that this fucking asshole right here has a connect to everyone, a direct line to everyone?
Exactly.
No.
No.
That's my favorite thing now.
Well, it'll play at
Good
the
night,
end
everybody.
of the outro. Yeah, it'll play at the end. Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
guys.
everybody. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you all.